Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be going through my July wrap up. July was actually a pretty good reading month for me. I ended up reading 12 books in total, and to be honest, for the last few months I've been averaging more like 9 books per month, so I'm super happy with 12. In terms of genres, out of the 12 books, 7 of those were romance, 2 were more contemporary, we had 2 fantasy and 1 thriller. So in the month of July, I was definitely in my romance era. To be fair, 5 of those books I think were read in my 24-hour reading vlog, in which I only read romance books for 24 hours. It definitely checks out. And there's something about summer for me that just always makes me crave a good romance or contemporary book. So I was just eating up those stories throughout July. In terms of ratings, I also had a pretty good month. Out of the 12 books, 3 of those were 3 stars, 6 were 4 stars, and the last 3 were 5-star reads. So we had nothing below a 3-star rating and a lot of 4-star ratings. Honestly, I do think part of that is just because I was eating up all of these great romance reads, and they were all romance books that had been recommended to me either by friends, other book creators, or just through watching content. And yeah, I had the best time reading all of my great romance books. So you guys know how this works. We're just going to go through all the books I read in July. I'll talk about my thoughts, feelings and ratings. I'll try not to ramble too much, and hopefully you guys will get some good book recommendations and enjoy the video. So without further ado, let's get into the 12 books I read in July. So the first book I read in July was Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I read this one on my Kindle. I'd heard such amazing things about Abby Jimenez's writing and I was dying to pick one of her books up. Yours Truly is actually the second book in a series, the Part of Your World series, but it is a companion series, so it's not critical that you read them in order. It may have added a bit more if I knew a little bit more about her best friend, which I'm pretty sure is the main character in the first book. It would have given me a little bit more background. I do usually like to read companion series in order, but these things happen. In Yours Truly, we follow Brianna, who is this really high achieving doctor. She's working towards a promotion at her hospital that she works at, and she thinks she's about to get it, and then this new guy, Jacob, is hired, and her boss tells her that he's going to give Jacob a few months to settle in, and then there's going to be a vote on which of them will get this promotion. So obviously these two don't start off on the best foot. We do get both perspectives, and we know that Jacob also has really bad social anxiety, so a few of their first interactions do come across badly to Brianna, when really it's just about Jacob's anxiety, and they begin communicating through letters and post-it notes in the hospital, and that's how their friendship relationship starts, and it goes from there. And honestly, I love this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I loved both Brianna and Jacob as characters. I thought the anxiety representation in this was immaculate. Reading it made me feel so seen and so well represented, and I also really loved the way that Brianna dealt with Jacob's anxiety and the way she treated him, the way she understood him. I just thought it was such a beautiful story. I had so much fun with it, and I cannot wait to read more of Abby Jimenez's writing. The next book I read in July was The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This one was a weird one for me because I think I went into it thinking it was a very different story to what it is. We follow Florence, and at the beginning of the novel she is struggling to write the final book in the contract that she has with her publisher as a ghostwriter for this really famous author, and she's struggling to write this book because it is a romance book and she's recently been through a horrible breakup and no longer believes in love. Her new editor Benji gives her a deadline for this and basically says you need to get it done, and then her dad passes away, so she goes home to be with her family, to help with funeral arrangements, figure out what on earth her life is going to be now. And there's a knock at the door, and it happens to be the ghost of Benji, her editor. And I should mention that Florence does see ghosts. This is not new to her. What is new though is someone she knows. Usually they come to her and she helps them to pass on, but the situation with Benji is a little bit different, and the story goes from there. So when I read the blurb, I thought this was more going to be about Benji and Florence and their romance, whereas the book, I would say, focuses more on her grief and how she grows as a person following that, and then the romance is almost like a side plot. It is prominent, it is a really important part of the novel, but I don't think it's the central focus of the novel, and I think that's why when I went in it just wasn't what I was expecting at all, and I did not enjoy it to begin with. But once I adjusted my expectations and realised what the novel is supposed to be, I ended up really enjoying it. So I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars. No, I didn't. That's a lie. Okay, what I've noted down here is wrong. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. So adjust the ratings I gave at the beginning of the novel. Take away a 3-star and add a 4-star. I give this book 4 out of 5 stars because I love the second half so much, and it is one that I intend to go back to and read after maybe like a year or so, knowing what I'm going into, because I feel like this could be close to a 5-star read perhaps if I went into it knowing what it was, because it was a really beautiful book. I loved how it was written and I loved seeing Florence grow throughout the book. So yeah, I'm really interested to see what my thoughts will be upon a reread. The next book I read in July was Twisted Love by Anna Juan, and I was so surprised by this book. I absolutely love this book. I ended up giving it 5 out of 5 stars, which I know some people will find shocking, but I just thoroughly enjoyed my time with this. I sped through it. It is some of the most fun I've had reading a book. We basically follow Alex and Ava, and Alex is this very dark character, this guy with a very shady, haunted, dark past. When his best friend goes away to travel for a year, I believe, he asks him to look after his little sister Ava. And Ava is this very like carefree, sunshiny girl, but she also has a very haunted, dark past as well that we don't know too much about. And Alex basically moves into his best friend's house, which is right next door to Ava, and promises to keep an eye on her while her brother is away. The story goes from there, but Alex is definitely a very possessive, dark, I don't know how many times I've said dark, but he's a dark character. If he was a real life person behaving the way he does in this book with me or with one of my friends, I would be telling them to run for the hills because it's not healthy at all, but to read about is so much fun. I loved seeing their relationship grow. I loved seeing him change for Ava and the way he felt about her. The smut was on point. It does definitely deal with some very dark themes as well though, so please do look up your trigger warnings before reading this one, but I would highly recommend. It was such a fun time and I cannot wait to continue with the series. The next book I read was Beach Read by Emily Henry. This is my second Emily Henry. I read Book Lovers last year and loved it, and this was no different. I really do love Emily Henry's writing. I need to catch up. I think I've got 2 more books of hers that I need to read before I've read all of her backlist. She's definitely going to become an auto-buy author for me once I have done that, because her writing is just so easy to read and I really enjoy her romances. In this one we follow January and Gus, who are both writers, and they both go away to their respective beach houses for the summer to work on their novels. And it just so happens that these beach houses are right next door to each other. So they're both there working on their books, both with horrible writer's block, and they make a bet and decide to swap genres, write books within each other's genre, and then whoever gets published first wins. And in order to do that, they spend lots of time together teaching each other about their respective genres. Obviously they get to know each other. They do have a bit of a past as well. And yeah, I did give this one 4 out of 5 stars. I loved it for all the same reasons that I love Book Lovers. I love the romance, I love the witty banter, I love that it talks about books and writing and reading. Any book that is self-aware like that I always enjoy. So yeah, highly recommend Emily Henry and cannot wait to read more of her books. Next up I read Flawless by Elsie Silver. This is the first book in the Chestnut Spring series, and if you guys have been watching my vlogs recently you will know I adore the Chestnut Spring series. It is my new favourite romance series. I am absolutely obsessed. I might as well talk about this now because I did actually end up reading Flawless, Heartless and Powerless in July. So I read 3 of the Chestnut Springs books in July and I loved each and every one of them. Each one follows a different guy from the Eaton family and their romance. They're all different types of romance. So in Flawless, Rhett is basically babysat by Summer, who is his agent's daughter, to help his image after he makes a little bit of a mistake. He's this champion bull rider and he needs to protect his image, so Summer is employed to babysit him to make sure it all goes right. Obviously he at first is not very happy about being babysat like that, but their relationship soon flourishes. In the second one we have Cade and Willa. Cade is a grumpy single dad. He hires Willa, the younger nanny, to look after his child while he is working on the ranch over the summer. And grumpy sunshine vibes, the smut, the absolute sexual tension before the smut. Honestly incredible. Heartless is my favourite book of the series so far. I gave that one 5 out of 5 stars. It's one of my favourite books of the year so far. Powerless actually actually really surprised me because it is a friends to lovers book, and I really do not usually get on with friends to lovers books because I often feel like there's no reason for them still to be friends. Like, they both know they fancy each other, so why are they not just getting together? And I find it really frustrating to read about. But in this one there were reasons and the way that their relationship blossomed throughout and the way they helped each other through some really difficult times was honestly just beautiful, and I cried at the ending. Cried. And I've always said if a book can make me cry, it definitely includes some very good writing. So I ended up giving Powerless 5 out of 5 stars as well. So with 4 stars for Flawless and 5 stars for Heartless and Powerless. Heartless is still my favourite book of the series so far, but I cannot wait to continue with them. Reckless is next on my agenda, and then I believe Hopeless is coming out soon, and that should be the 5th book in the series. I've been reading them all on Kindle Unlimited, but honestly I think I'm gonna have to buy them because I need to own this series. I just love it so much. So with the Chestnut Springs series, the next book I read was The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. This is the first book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. This is another companion romance series, which apparently is my new favourite thing. In the series we have 3 brothers who, when their grandfather dies, leaves each of them a task that they have to complete in order to get their inheritance. And Rowan from the first book, his task is to find out what the weaknesses are of the amusement park that they own and work out how to make it better. And at the end of the book he has to go before a board chosen by his grandfather before he passed away, and they will vote on whether he has achieved this or not and can therefore get his inheritance. And he basically enlists the help of Zara for this. Again, this is Grumpy Sunshine vibes. I actually really enjoyed the setting of this one because it's basically set in a sort of Disneyland type park. I'm not like a die-hard Disney fan, but I do love Disney, and I did love the setting in this one, and I really enjoyed Lauren Asher's writing in this, so I did give this one 4 out of 5 stars, and I will be continuing with the rest of the series as soon as possible. I then read Sing Me to Sleep by Gabby Burton. This is a YA fantasy about a siren who is living in a world where most mythical creatures have been banished from this kingdom, and a barrier has been pulled down so that no one else can get in and none of the desires people can get out. So in this kingdom we have fae, we have humans, and we have another creature that I cannot remember right now. Basically the fae own this kingdom and the humans are treated like slaves. Sirens are not supposed to be here at all. If she is ever found out, she will be killed. And at the start she is in the barracks learning to be a top soldier, warrior, and she comes top of her class and is therefore awarded the most highly esteemed position, which is to become a guard for the prince, which she shouldn't really do because if the royals find out who she is, they will kill her. But she takes the job because she's being blackmailed. Her little sister is also some sort of creature that we don't know at the beginning of the novel, and she's doing everything in her power to hide this so that no one finds out, and she therefore must take this job at the royal palace in order to find out more and hopefully save herself and her sister. And I love this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed the writing. The sort of like last quarter of the book was an absolute roller coaster. I cannot believe how twisty it got. I really enjoyed the romance in this one, and this one is the first in what I think is going to be a duology, so I cannot wait to find out more in the next book. I then read A Little Bit Country by Brian D. Kennedy. This is a YA contemporary about 2 young boys. We have Emmett, who is an openly gay country singer, and he wants to be country's first massive gay superstar. So he takes a job at Wonderworld, which is the amusement park owned by Wanda Jane Stubbs, who is this massive country superstar. We then have Luke, who lives in the town where Wonderworld is. He is gay as well, but he is not openly gay, and he's actually terrified of his sexuality ever getting out because his family and the town he lives in are very close-minded and they're not going to be very accepting if they do find out. But he also takes a job at Wonderworld. The 2 boys meet and the story goes from there. And this was definitely a very cutesy YA contemporary, and I do think it had some really important stuff in there about sexuality, about coming out, about learning who you are, and I did really enjoy those parts, but I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars, and I think the main reason for that is just that YA contemporaries just don't do it for me anymore. I can read YA fantasy and even some YA thrillers, but YA contemporary, YA romance for me, for the most part, I think think it's just too young nowadays. I do really enjoy my adult smutty romances, and now I feel like YA contemporaries just don't go as hard into the feelings as adult books do, and they just don't get the same emotional response from me. So this one was a 3 out of 5 stars. Definitely a good book, but not one that is gonna stay with me. Next up, I read my July blind date with a book, and if you've not seen that, I will link the video down below, but spoilers ahead, the book was Within These Wicked Walls by Lauren Blackwood, and this one is a Ethiopian inspired retelling of Jane Eyre. And honestly, I can't believe I hadn't heard of this one before I did that vlog, because I love anything Jane Eyre inspired. I will read any Jane Eyre retelling you give me. Jane Eyre is one of my favourite books of all time, and to read a Ethiopian inspired horror fantasy version of that was honestly incredible. We follow Andromeda in this, who is a Detera, which is a kind of exorcist that gets rid of the evil eye, and she is hired to go and do that for Magnus at Thornfield Manor. His whole mansion is just cursed beyond repair, and she goes there to try and help him out with this, and the story goes from there. I won't say too much because I feel like anything would really be a spoiler for this if you don't want to know how it differs from Jane Eyre. But I did end up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the eerie atmosphere. I did say in my vlog that it gave me huge Crimson Peak vibes, and Crimson Peak is one of my favourite films of all time. So if you want to see more of my thoughts, please do head to that vlog, but would highly recommend to all of my Jane Eyre lovers out there. And the final book I read in July was A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. I listened to the audiobook for this one on Scribd, and for me the first half of this book was definitely better than the second half. We follow Chloe, who when she was younger in her town there were a number of disappearances of young teenage girls. They never found the bodies, but they assumed that they were murdered, and her dad was actually arrested for this and has been in prison ever since. And we now follow her as an adult, and the town that she's living in now, similar disappearances seem to start happening, and we're trying to figure out how they're connected and if her dad is really guilty of the original ones and who we can trust now. So we get both timelines. We get flashbacks to when she was young, and we get the investigation now, and it's really interesting to see the two investigations side by side and how similar they are. I did also talk about this one in my most recent weekly reading vlog. I enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars, and this is the first half star that I've ever given out, but that's going to have to be a thing now, because for this one 3 stars felt too low but 4 stars felt too high. I really enjoyed the premise of this story, and the first half had me really intrigued. For me, the second half, though there were a lot of twists and everything was explained really well, none of it really hit me that hard like a thriller usually did. I didn't get that feeling of satisfaction like I usually do at the end of a thriller. I don't know if it was something about Stacey Willingham's writing that just didn't work for me, but yeah, it just doesn't feel like a very memorable thriller for me. So that is it for my July wrap up. I am really happy with the books that I read in July. It was such a good reading month. Hopefully we can continue that in August. Please do let me know what you read in July, what was the best book you read, and perhaps the worst book you read as well. As always, if you have any recommendations for me, please do let me know. If you made it to the end of this video, pop the teardrop emoji down below just to let me know that you made it to the end and that you enjoyed your time here. But as always, if you did enjoy the video, please do give it a big thumbs up, subscribe for more bookish content from me, comment down below with any of your thoughts and feelings. I do reply to every single comment. I love you all, and I'll see you in my next one.